Hey there team, welcome back to the channel, welcome to my overview of Dread Delusion. So for those who want to cross it on the channel, I do overviews and reviews pretty much daily. When I do one of these overviews, it's just a look at the first 2 hours of the game. That's the Steam refund window. Steam reckons you can make up your mind in 2 hours whether you want to keep a game or not, and I tend to agree. Broadly speaking, you're not really going to change your mind 20 hours in from what you thought 2 hours in. This also allows me to triage what I will and won't review in the future, because who has the time? Anyway, so Dread Delusion, let me just front load. People seem to be responding well, and I'm not trying to bait, I just waffle a bit. At the front, this game is really, really good. Specifically, if you are someone that is hurting for the Elder Scrolls of old, like an open world RPG, like this reminds me of, personally, I don't have a huge touchstone with Morrowind, but things like Oblivion, and even to an extent Skyrim, but I've definitely resonated more with Oblivion. That was sort of my first in that space. If you were perhaps burnt by Starfield, or maybe you're on the sort of Fallout kick at the moment and you're looking for something along that line, so you're getting a bit of an idea. What this game is tapping is the Bethesda formula, but of yesteryear. And that might be enough for people to just drop everything and go buy it immediately. It's really quite good. I understand that the art style is, you could say, unique for sure, and it might put some people off, but it really actually works. There is a cohesion and such an interesting design direction to the world. And it all gels together. They've gone with a pretty wild color palette, and the soundtrack is kind of this sort of very mellow, almost melancholic vaporwave, and it all just works so well together. The story writing is top notch. In fact, it's causing me to sort of align the Swiss cheese and have a bit of an epiphany about what I really don't like about modern writing. And it's less about sort of ideological inserts. That is a problem all itself, but before that became a problem kind of, in current year, it's a big problem. But even playing Dragon Age Inquisition, you could see something was starting to go wrong with the writing even then. So there's been something happening. This game gets it right. In fact, I will just, if you allow me, have a quick chat about that. Recently I reviewed Dragon Age Inquisition. It's a great game, it is, but it feels bloated, but we're going to focus on the writing. The writing, I have come to realize with the help of this game, smacks of ego. You'll pick up a scroll for a side quest or story, and it will be 5 scroll pages. And it's patting you on the head, and it seems much more that the writer is really interested in, hey, look at this really clever story that I wrote. And quite often it is very clever, right? But instead of letting it ruminate in your mind or just giving you enough to make you interested, it browbeats you with 5 pages of explaining it to the lowest common denominator. And all it reads of is the writer is so proud of their own work that they have to browbeat you with it. And I suppose the other end of the scale would be things like with Dark Souls, right? Little lore drips. This is an extreme example, and there's a whole conversation to be had around all the imitators of Dark Souls usually miss the mark, and all they do is just write platitudes, paradoxes, tautologies, just really shit circular writing to be cryptic because they're trying to imitate FromSoft. But that's the other end of the scale, where it just gives you a little bit of info and lets you sort of fill in the gaps with your mind, or potentially go exploring yourself. And this sits right in the sweet spot, in the perfect spot in the middle, where a lot of the writing is paragraphs of 1 or 2 lines, and it just gives you a bit of information, and it's clearly written by someone who loves their world. They really enjoy the environment. I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a one-man dev team or if it's a very small dev team, but regardless, it reads less as a writer trying to show you their credentials and how good they are as a writer, and more as a gamer writing you snippets and inviting you into a world they love to explore. Already, I've started the game, I've been press-ganged by this sort of empire churchy faction that have a bit of 40k going on, even though this is a fantasy setting. You're a prisoner that is essentially earning your way to freedom by doing missions for them, so you have a bit of an indentured servitude. You're being led by this big hotshot Sheila, but she's someone similar to yourself, except she's done unspeakable, horrible crimes and essentially has a life sentence or multiple life sentences and lives in this, I cannot describe it properly, this sort of Iron Maiden chamber with blood coming out of it. So it's tapping that sort of empire, dreadnought, perpetual bloody pain for the religion, and so she's doing her penance, and they have all these sort of mechanical dropship spider things, this weird, I don't want to say steampunk because that's overplayed, but these cool ships that really work because of the art style that's here. I'm exploring this region where they have their entire industry is around farming these mushrooms that apparently let you see the future. I immediately bought one and drank one, and my dude just tripped balls. And the more you ask people around town and just get snippets of info, the more you realize that, maybe it's a bit of an urban legend, maybe it's a 1% of people get it or whatever, but they export this all over the world. That's their economy, but their mushroom fields are dying. And this is on the back of what was called the God War in the region, where there were gods ruling over all these areas, and there was a huge uprising, I think 40 years ago, and they actually killed their god. And there's a whole backstory about giant mushrooms that you could human sacrifice to them, and it's sort of inferred that maybe their fields are dying off because they killed off their gods. And I don't want to ruin it, but I also want to give you an idea of what a game in current year with really, really good world building and writing looks like. And then the game's also talked about off to the east, there's the Clockwork Kingdom, so they're all like automaton dudes, and again, it's just given me enough info to go, I can't wait to see what's out there. To the west is the Undying Lands or something like that, where there are people that literally don't die, but it's kind of like skin rotten off their bones and they have to eat flesh to stay alive, but apparently they don't eat sentient flesh. And this is just stuff I've picked up from tiny snippets talking to travelers on the road and random people. Never walls of text, only little paragraphs of 1 or 2 lines. It reminds me in a way of things like Sunless Sea and Sunless Skies. In that world building, if you can feel the enthusiasm and hear it, then that's what's going on here. It compels me, which is something that is missed by all these people that fancy themselves good writers. I haven't even touched on the mechanics. I've already waffled quite a bit, but the core of something like this game is that world building, that sense of adventure and curiosity. And this taps it better than bloody anything else this year. As far as the mechanics go, it's very Red Book Dungeons & Dragons old school. It's simple, but it works really well. I've got my little rusty sword with an attack and a parry. Combat's pretty straightforward, but to offset it, the enemies kind of hit you pretty hard as well. So it might not be super big brain stuff, but you will lose over attrition. You have a stamina bar, which is simple enough. It just drains over the course of a day, and it looks like by the end of 24 hours, it's pretty much running down. When it hits halfway, you're fatigued and you're limited what you can do, and the only way to get it back is to sleep at an inn. So you will find yourself regularly having to sleep at an inn every day for a couple of coins, which is sort of something that you don't really see utilized properly in most RPGs, right? And your damage output is reflected by how big your stamina bar is as well. So the longer you push your luck, the worse it goes. So you sort of have to get into a circadian rhythm, which is really cool. There's rudimentary magic and I've only got a couple of spells, like a town portal spell, but you've got like lock picks that roll a d6, and it needs, if it's a really hard to lockpick door, it needs a 6. I wasted all my lockpicks trying to do that, but now I need to level up my skill to roll better. And you also get like door handles and sconces on the wall that can be essentially magic locks, and you can interact with them. If your lore skill's not high enough, you can't, so then you want to level that up. So that's a sort of an alternate path to opening magic doors. The game is very explicit that you don't have to do combat, and in fact almost every single fight in the game can be avoided through rudimentary stealth or persuasion or whatever, and the game wears that on its sleeve, and that's really cool. So yeah, I am so impressed. What a wonderful game. And my hope is that through this video that I can help broach that gap, because I feel like the people that would love this would be Bethesda fanboys, but I also feel like a lot of those types would look at the screenshots of this and the graphics and go, nah, not for me. And I truly hope I can bring this to someone's attention that might have passed on it out of habit, I suppose you could call it. Anyway, I don't want to waffle more than that. This game is really quite wonderful, and it's sitting high on my list. I mean, I've got so many things to review as well, but what an absolute delight exploring this little world. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.